Aloha, and welcome to the Hawaii Retirement Show, where your hosts Jason and Paul are excited to bring you a podcast dedicated to retirement planning and financial education for all those who call Hawaii home. Both Jason and Paul are practicing financial advisors here on Oahu, and both are excited to share their knowledge, opinions, and unique perspectives as it relates to retirement planning with everyone listening to this show. And now, here's your hosts, Jason Cutitta and Paul McWilliams.
All right, thanks for tuning in, everybody, to the Hawaii Retirement Show. We got a Q&A episode here.
Yes, we do.
This is our second Q&A episode. Always excited for these episodes. Kind of do a little, freewheeling, answering to these things here. So first one we got, question 1, says, Aloha, I am not anywhere near retirement, but I am currently changing jobs and wanted to ask, what is the best thing to do with my 401k with my old employer? So thank you for that question there. Paul, you want to get us started with what this listener can do with their 401k? What is the best thing they can do?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And maybe what I'll do is I'll kind of just talk through the options that you might have. And then maybe we can kind of dialogue about like maybe what might be best or what would be kind of like the top 2-3 options. But so whenever you leave an employer and you have a 401k or any type of retirement plan, you actually do have certain rules that you can follow. So the first one, or the first rule is you might not have to do anything. Right. You might just be able to leave it there, and typically there might be like an account minimum threshold that you have to meet, but you can leave the money in place at that previous employer. Mm-hmm. That might not be what you want to do, but that is an option.
Sure.
The second option is to actually roll it over. Or do a direct transfer to maybe your new employer's plan.
Yeah.
Right? So that could be an option. And sometimes there might be some rules. You might not be eligible for that new plan. But again, moving it from employer to employer is also something that you can do. The third option is also considered a rollover, but you can move it into an IRA or an individual retirement account, right? So you can actually transition it, move it from the 401k or your previous employer to your individual account that you might have set up already or might need to set up. But that's pretty easy and pretty common.
Yeah.
And then typically the last option, which I'll just caveat by saying not necessarily our favorite option, but you actually could, leaving an employer is a distribution event, so you could withdraw those dollars. You could actually cash it out. In this case, with this question, nowhere near retirement, probably not a good idea to do that.
Yeah, probably some penalties there that you're going to pay.
Absolutely, and depending how you saved it, pre-tax or Roth, you might owe taxes on top of all that. So again, in general, those are your general options available to you. So Jason, why don't we talk about what might be the best thing to do?
So again, we're not here to give specific advice, right? So the best thing to do is you got to ask yourself, do I like the custodian and the plan that it is in now, right? So look at the investment options, look at the the fees associated with it. Do you like it? If you like it, you leave it, right? Do you like another custodian that has another plan, whether that's your new employer or an IRA? And if you like that better, then the answer would be to roll it over, right? So there's no best answer. There is, do you like where it's at now?
Right.
If the answer to that question is yes, then leave it. If the answer is no, then there's the other alternatives that you kind of outlined, right? And then the last option, which you touched on, the distributions, is that should be, for most of us, a last resort because of the penalties, right? I mean, you're just giving up money to the IRS in a penalty, which you want to keep. You want to keep that money, that nest egg, that investment snowball growing as long as you can. It's not timing the market, time in the market, right? Leave that in the market and let that thing grow so you can have this nice nest egg in retirement. That's kind of all I have for that question.
Yeah, I think that hits it right there. And, it might not be the best answer, but it's the right answer for you and your situation and your circumstances.
Sure.
So, thank you so much for that question. I hope that gives a great outline of what to do, with your old employer plan. But we got another question. So let's go ahead and kick this off. So the second question we got was, so I'll read it out to you. So, hello, Jason and Paul. When should someone look into getting long-term care insurance? Ooh, I like this question. It seems very expensive, and I'm still on the fence as to whether or not me and my husband will get a policy. Thank you, and good luck with this podcast.
Good
so,
question.
I mean, I honestly, like, the first sentence was amazing. I really like this question. So, really, long-term care in general. So, Jason, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so there's no specific time of when should someone look into getting long-term care insurance. You hear sometimes general rule of thumbs, and sometimes rule of thumbs are good. Sometimes you need to caveat them, but usually, maybe as you approach your 50s, right? As you approach your 60s, the reason being, if you get a long-term care insurance policy too early, then you're paying premiums for a longer time, right? If you get a long-term care insurance policy too late, then maybe you start to have health issues or you're less insurable, which means the premiums kind of go up. So I always joke, the best time to get long-term care insurance policy is right before the wheels start falling off, right? Right when you're the most insurable. Before you start having health issues, because with the underwriting process, they're going to evaluate your health, and that's just how they use the rule of large numbers and actuaries, because they can't, the insurance company can't lose, right? Lose it. By lose, I mean pay out huge long-term care benefits to people for everybody who gets a policy. The whole idea with insurance is the reason you have car insurance. Some people need it, some people never need it, and you end up subsidizing the people who do need it by paying those premiums. So that's kind of where I think it is very expensive, and it's only getting more expensive.
Right.
I can empathize with the listener, the question's feelings there. And I guess my last take on it would be long-term care insurance doesn't have to be an all or none proposition, right? So some people never get long-term care insurance, and what they do is they're self-funding, right? So they're retaining that risk and saying, well, maybe I probably not going to need it, or if I do need it, I have this money saved over here, and maybe I'll earmark that for that. It is very expensive, so maybe you get an insurance policy to cover half of what you think it might cost, and then you set aside some money using different buckets to cover what you think you might miss outside of that policy.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I absolutely. And again, like you said, like sympathizing for the expense of this type of stuff. But I mean, really, it's how do you want to handle that risk?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, do you want to put that risk on the insurance company that you're getting this product through, or do you and your husband, in this case, want to hold on to that risk? And what I would say too is there are progressing products out there, which we will probably actually dig into this in a future episode talking about long-term care in general. But just to highlight, like there are more than just that standard standalone long-term care policy these days.
There's all kinds.
There are other products out there that that aren't that use it or lose it type of philosophy. It's at some point in time you can do it. You can get a program or a policy that you would use it at some point in time, and you kind of reduce that risk of moving away from just like that traditional use it or lose it. Almost like like you mentioned, like car insurance, right? It's like you hope to never use it,
right?
But you're glad when you have it.
Yeah, no, Murphy's Law, right? If you don't have it, you're going to need it, and if you have it, you're not going to need it. I mean, that's what they say, right? But but you also got to think, it is a shame you buy this long-term care policy, you pay all these premiums in it, and you might never need it, right? But I think it's important to think, well, I'm not paying just for the premiums; I'm paying for the peace of mind. Like I've kind of.
I like that.
There's something to be said for it. It's like when people try to maximize Social Security to like the maximum dollar for this. It's like, well, a lot of times you make these decisions. You buy life insurance for maybe you have kids and a mortgage, right? And you might never need that life insurance, but think of the peace of mind. I know that if something happened and God forbid I pass, I know my kids and I got this policy and they'll be taken care of. Same rings true for long-term care, right?
Yeah.
Because a common thing is that we see is with no long-term care policy, and you have a couple, maybe one of them needs long-term care and they have a long ride towards the end of health complications, and they start depleting assets, right? And then they leave the surviving spouse with not too much of a nest egg. So that's where like the policy kind of helps protect against that.
Yeah.
And and I hate that we can never give specific answers, because that's where what we do in it turns into more of an art than a science, right? If you could tell the future, then it'd be a much easier situation to talk through.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that came to mind as you brought up, like kids and stuff like that. I know we don't know this specifically for this specific question, but husband and wife, maybe you have kids. So something that like me like that I talk to my parents about, right?
Sure.
Is yes, it's expensive. Maybe we can talk to our kids about talking through what it would look like to help fund it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have funding, again, somebody will have to take care of you. And typically that might fall onto your kids.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
so like I talk to my parents about like, to be honest with you, I don't want to do that.
Right.
I might be willing
It's a huge burden, right?
I might be willing to help you fund this policy.
Right.
So that if you ever need it, it's going to be a peace of mind for me as well as the child.
Right.
Right. So all I'm saying.
And on the other side of the spectrum, maybe you have the support system in the family where they're going to step up and take care of you, in which you don't really need.
And that's a part of your planning.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So all things are personal. All items are meant to be helpful. But anyway, any other thoughts?
I think that's it. I think that's a good place to end it. Thank you for writing in the questions. We're always looking forward to getting good questions to talk about here on the show.
Absolutely. And again, thank you for coming along this journey with us, and hope you guys have a great day.
As always, mahalo for tuning in and listening to the Hawaii Retirement Show. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show on whichever platform you choose to listen on. Be sure to check out the show notes and subscribe to our mailing list for information on new episodes and more. If you have a retirement planning question that you'd like us to talk about on our show, please email it over to aloha@hawaiiretirementshow.com. And until next time, aloha and happy planning.
The opinions and statements presented on this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Never make any investment or financial decisions based on information offered on this show without first consulting their financial, legal, or tax advisor. All economic and performance information mentioned on the show is historical in nature and is not indicative of any future results. All indices mentioned on this show are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Lastly, all opinions expressed by Jason Cutitta, Paul McWilliams, and any guests on the show are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of or are endorsed by ToBA Financial or Inspire Advisors. For Jason Cutitta, investment advisory services are offered through ToBA Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Hawaii and in other jurisdictions where exempt from registration. And for Paul McWilliams, investment advisory services are offered through Inspire Advisors LLC, a registered investment advisor with the SEC.